Okay, so hi. Um,
Right.
eh, well, can you say your name and where you are now, who you are, just briefly?
Yes, okay. I'm Margherita, Spagnuolo Lobb. I'm Italian and I live in Syracuse, Sicily.
Mhm.
And I'm the director and founder of the Istituto di Gestalt, HCC Italy. And we have 3 premises in Milan, Palermo, and Syracuse. And our postgraduate school for Gestalt psychotherapists is approved by the Italian Minister for the Universities, and it's also approved by the EAGT, the European Association for Gestalt Therapy. And then I also organize and lead international programs, postgraduate for Gestalt psychotherapists about psychopathology and development, and then for Gestalt supervisors. And then I also chair very nice thing. It's a 5 days every year, the summer program for psychotherapists to take care of themselves, to work on themselves and be updated on new theoretical and methodological aspects. And then I have, is it too long? Then I'm a writer and an editor. I edit the Italian journal for Gestalt Therapy, Quaderni di Gestalt, since 1985. And it's a scientific journal. And also I edit an international series, Gestalt Therapy book series, Gestalt Therapy books that are supported by a community of scholars, Gestalt Therapy scholars. And now it will be published by Routledge. This series will be published by Routledge. And I stop here.
Okay, and since we are, under these circumstances of COVID-19, I wonder how are you coping now with all this? What you mentioned yeah. Please,
Yeah.
can you share? Can you share? Is it?
Well, it's a huge thing, and in Italy, as you know, we have been touched by this collective trauma so much. So I feel very much touched by this, very much affected. I have a lot of colleagues who are in the red zone of Italy, north of Italy, and there are many things that I think in certain things that are related to the anthropology and to the social aspects of our living together. I think we all of a sudden we had to cope with the need to obey to a rule and to be protected and to protect our species, our human us as human beings. So we had suddenly to renounce to a freedom, but we had to do it to survive. And also this brought us to the awareness of being very much biological interconnected. So we cannot save ourselves alone, but to save ourselves means to save the whole humanity. And this is such a big, huge thing, because we could apply this also to psychotherapy. Why do we go to psychotherapy? Not only for ourselves, but also for the humanity. So what we do good for ourselves, we do it also for the humanity.
I've been also wondering how this impacted, your school, your trainings, because you mentioned how many things there are connected,
Yes,
interrelated with the institute, and I wonder how this impacted.
yeah. I was starting from reflection about
Okay.
our being, and there is a second aspect that
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
to underline, which is the feeling of the fragility of the other, the fragility, our fragility and the fragility of the other. We are fragile and we have experienced this deeply. So even to trust health services is not so obvious. Because health services are fragile and we need to protect them from, and that's why we need to stay at home and things like that. So I think these two aspects have impacted our way of being, and I think you are very much interested in this sociological aspects, the relationship with obeying and the relationship with our fragility.
And well, the first sort of questions are connected with with humanity, maybe not necessarily connected to coronavirus, but generally with you. And if you were to say what are your passions, what are your qualities, hobbies?
Oh, not you were asking about how my school changed.
Yeah.
Before, you want me to answer to that?
Yes. Yeah. Also. Yeah.
Yeah, because of course the teaching system has changed a lot. We changed all the Italian programs into online programs. And at the beginning it was very strange, but it was so good. But so good for students because they had to be locked down in their homes to see people dying around and to have this possibility to get together in groups, in their group, in their class, was really a wonderful support. So we have discovered, all together, we have discovered the possibilities of this online means to keep the contact. And of course, the contact has to change because it's not a contact like we did before. It's a new way of being in contact. We need to find new tools for being psychotherapist and also for teaching Gestalt therapy. It's a great challenge for us Gestalt therapists, how to use the body feeling and the body presence, even online. How can we do that? How can we use our senses? And this little part of the world, which is the screen.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of reflections of this, and I'm writing about this. Yes, I'm writing about this, and also we are organizing a webinar next week with many Gestalt therapists who can say what they think about this huge novelty. How can we assimilate this huge novelty and be creative in front of this? So you were asking about my hobbies, or?
Yeah, but now, because I thought that you wanted, to stop there, but maybe to somehow relate these two, I would ask you, well, under these new conditions and new perspectives on Gestalt therapy in this new world. I don't know how this will change, but anyways, you are writing something, so I wonder. How many of your interests, of your skills, of your experience, yes, is an advantage, is an asset in this online modes of being and modes of relating.
You mean Gestalt therapy schemes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gestalt therapy is a great tool for us, great support, because very briefly, the Gestalt therapy brings us to be connected with our vitality. Our vitality as psychotherapists and the client's vitality, the other's vitality. So the question is, how can we be connected with our and the client's vitality?
And more it is how, but how your qualities, your own experience, your own skills enabled this.
Well, I think that
I will ask you more maybe about Gestalt therapy in particular, but now I'm asking about you.
You're asking me to look at myself and tell you my qualities. I suppose that I try to include all the feelings, sufferings, and also not suffering feelings of the person I listen to. So I feel this quality to try to welcome all the feelings and then support the person to orient their energy into something they really want to do, their agency capacity. So this is the way I, probably it's something personal. And I also find myself in having faith in what the person is going to find out, having faith, waiting, and I trust the person's capacity to orient themselves, following their intentionality for contact. And I like very much the aesthetics aspect of our job, our work. So I use that a lot. I use a lot my senses to intuit what the other feels and also what I feel, considering my feeling as part of the field of the client. So I work a lot on the feelings, on the aesthetics aspect, the senses and the feelings, and how my feeling has to do with the field of the client. So with the experience of the client in the here now, that brings in the here now a whole field, not only the feeling of the client, but the whole field of experience. Yeah.
Well, I know again it is the question for I guess a seminar, but I wonder because of this online communication that you I believe do a lot, whether it is coronavirus or not, but how this is it how this online field differs from from face-to-face interactions. In your eyes, I mean, the way you see it, how is that different?
It's a need for me. We need to adjust to this means of contact. It's the only one we can use at the moment. So I feel I try to adjust to this, but I like real, the presence, the physical presence very much. I prefer it, of course. Yes, that's. I try to adjust. So what can we do? We cannot break the rules or risk or complain for how it was nice to meet together and to hug. We hope we can go back to that, but I don't know when. So we need to stay in the here now, adjust to this huge trauma of the whole humanity. We cannot touch, we cannot stay close physically. So I'm there, I'm trying to support, to do what can be done, trying to be active in this, but of course I prefer a different way.
I can feel that you are somehow you are saying not that much, but you are a lot of experience. I can see it now in your body, even though we don't see each other face to face. That how to put it? That there were a lot of painful experiences in Italy, even though you are in Syracuse, but but I can sense this from the way I can feel you now, because we last saw each other in Budapest, so it's been a while since then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I mean, speaking of the field, it's somehow difficult for me to ask you, yeah, suddenly of your hobbies and interests, because I can see that the field has changed, but yeah, well, maybe let's stick to the Gestalt therapy still, and the things you mentioned that are of your are your capacities. Have they did they well did they always be your capacities, or within Gestalt therapy, or did that change throughout these years, that you were first attracted to some as aspects of Gestalt therapy and you developed your skills and then you changed to something else, or you were always attracted to aesthetics and so on, for instance? How, yeah, I am interested in this evolution, if you like.
The interest for aesthetics, phenomenology, and field has always been, it's in my DNA, because I took the phenomenological and aesthetic interest from, first of all, from the Polsters, and then from Daniel Stern, who has been my mentor for 9 years. And the Polsters have been my first trainers. Okay. I attended their training for 2 years. So they taught me how to look at with aesthetic eyes. Okay. Aesthetic eyes, not to be surprised by what happens. So this aesthetic spirit, it's very connected with the aesthetic spirit, because we let ourselves be activated by our senses with a sort of faith into what comes next. That's why my book is called The Now for Next. The title of my book is The Now for Next in Psychotherapy. And the field, I take it from Isidor Fromm, who was my therapist. He taught me a way of working at the field level in a Gestalt therapy context. You know, Isidor was one of the founders, so he had contributed to create the Gestalt therapy. And the field, that he did not call it in that way. He was to experience the presence of the therapist in front of the client. Let's say it in this way. No? So an eye, a very careful eye to what happens between me and the client. So these are my main interests in Gestalt therapy, and they are still like that. More interest in the field, maybe, because what is happening in our field, in our global field today. So the feeling that I can hurt another person if I meet this person, because I might have the virus and not knowing it. And when I meet even my old mother, I might create a damage to her. This is a global feeling that we have, and I think we have to cope with this. With our being Gestalt therapist, I think we can give a good contribution with our principles.
And what about well, it is partly maybe to what you said, you already said, but what have your involvement been in Gestalt therapy besides those 3 domains, if you like, throughout these years? In theory, and both in theory and in practice, yeah.
Yeah, this has been something that has evolved in the years. So I went to the Polsters when I was 23. And Irving used to say that, uses to say that he had to ask for permission from my father to accept me, because I was too young. So it had a lot of years now, it's 40 years. And I have changed a lot, always being connected with what happens in the surrounding of the scientific realms, like neurosciences. Neurosciences have been very important in my development. I have a good relationship with Gallese and a group of Parma University who have discovered the mirror neurons. Gallese has been one of the trainers in my institute. And we have somehow cooperated a bit. So they are important, and their discoveries, but also other discoveries like Paxat or Damasio or Siegel. You know, we are in my institute. We are a big group of trainers now. We are about 80 trainers. It's a lot. And they also have developed a lot neurosciences studies. So they go to train neurosciences. So this brings a lot of new life, new food to Gestalt principles. And then also the relational intersubjective psychoanalysis. So how to read the here now in relational terms, and how we are different from intersubjective psychoanalysis, for instance. This has been important to me, to define myself as Gestalt therapist as different from, at least in terms of principles and theories, you know, how we are different. And also I have risked to work with other colleagues from other projects a lot. I like to work with psychoanalysts or a family therapist or cognitive constructivist. I have a lot of experience in co-leading a session or co-leading a group with colleagues from other approaches. And this has taught me a lot. I mean, how to define myself as a Gestalt therapist.
Yeah, I wonder because I remember one of your interview. It was some years ago with Nancy McWilliams and then with I guess Donna Orange and Bernd Bocian. And I remember your way of speaking, like to differentiate, but in a really like paying attention to that differentiation. I don't remember now what exactly, but I remember this approach to show also the differences, because it's easy to see similarities in some ways. I mean, at least for
it's very interesting. Very, it's a great learning. For us Gestalt therapists and for everybody to see how Nancy McWilliams works. She's magic when she works with a client. With one word, she understands a lot of things from one word. And we are magic with the body. We understand a lot of things from the way the client breathes. So we are different, but we are good, very good, both. Yeah. I think it's a great learning for us to open our minds and see what others do, respect each other, and the variety, the diversity is a value.
Yeah, in this differentiating yourself, I could see that there was much respect, because it's sometimes easy to differentiate and with no respect. I would say with no will to learn, just to understand.
And also the curiosity. The curiosity is important, you know.
And how would you how would you name it? I mean, this transition of what you learned from some of these approaches, and how did you bring that to Gestalt therapy? Is it possible to name it in some ways?
I don't know how to name it, but it gave me the possibility to develop Gestalt therapy a lot. For instance, when I read The Diary of a Baby of Daniel Stern, I was fascinated by the way he described the perception of a child, of a baby, of a newborn. And I thought, this is the experience of confluence. And I spoke to him about this. And it brought me to think that the child, the newborn, is not so much confluent, but you can perceive the difference between him and the other. This is one of the main line of his studies, you know. And so he helped me to define the confluence better. Confluence is not always the only thing we experience, it's part of our experience. It's not true that the child, the newborn, can just be confluent. He can do many other things. So that helped me a lot to think about what is the perspective of Gestalt therapy about development. How can we understand the perception of a newborn and the caregiver? And so I did my studies about Gestalt therapy with children, also starting from that. How can we describe the experience of a newborn and the mother, including all this, but also remaining Gestalt therapist? That's from where my concept of dance steps, of the reciprocity of dance steps between mother and child and between therapist and client.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, wow, it's impressive to see this, how this has developed, you know, and this transition and some transformation, recontextualization, if you like. Yeah, fascinating anyway. But okay, so let's move on. Well, and. Yeah, I wonder, because I need to somehow adjust to the time and adjust to the questions and to the field. But yeah, how would you say? I mean, yeah, what will happen with Gestalt therapy in the future? Because we didn't approach too much this issue of research, and I am also interested in research, in your view. Of the research and of the future of Gestalt the theory and Gestalt practice.
Yeah, I think we need to be very careful in protecting our approach because it's so beautiful. I think that Gestalt therapy has grasped something very important and very useful in the future. For instance, the vitality, to support the vitality of ourselves and of the other. And we need to be serious about research. And we need to be curious about what the others do. So learn a lot from others, but keep our passion. If we are Gestalt therapists, for sure, we have a lot of passion for this approach. But otherwise we wouldn't be Gestalt therapists. So we need to keep our passion and define our passion. When I see a lecture from a neuroscientist or from Van der Kolk, for instance, who speaks about trauma in the body, what do I like of it, and how can I keep it in my being a Gestalt therapist? So we need to reflect a lot. Including the others, and we need to write, because one of the biggest theme of Gestalt therapists is to be lazy, not to write, and to be discouraged about writing and doing research. So we need to be strong in that. We need to support also. What I like to do a lot is to support researching in my students. And that's why I do a lot of research in my institute. No, they need to be supported. You can make it. You have the energy. It's your approach. Go on. And then publish, of course, in not only in our journals, but also in scientific journals, which are well known, because we need to have our journals, but we also need to be known outside. I hope that this will happen. I know.
Yeah. I mean, I like this, what you said, and which is connected with your life as well, to reflect upon those encounters with different approaches, and what can we learn and how we can remodulate it. This is something we yeah, because research is a consequence in a way somehow, don't you think? Or and reflection is the first thing, and I like it. Yeah, maybe just yeah, just one thing. Do you think like we are a community, like Gestalt therapists? Do you think that we are united, or we are, yeah, fragmented? I don't know. Yeah, is it our risk of being too much fragmentized? Yeah.
I think we are a community, and we like to be a community, because what happens in our conferences is beautiful. We do feel we are a community. We are better than other approaches in that, because we risk to be aggressive. We risk to say what we feel, because we trust the other. We want that the other listens deeply to us. So I liked very much this, that we are not like polite people, you know, but we want to risk the contact, maybe to reach the other deeply. So this is very good, but every community needs to be supported. So we also need to do things to support our community. That's what I try to do. The more I go on with my age, and the more I try to support communities. The Gestalt therapy book series that I chair is about that. Well, if you write a book, I want a community to give you support about this book. So we have a scientific board, and we send excerpts of your book to a few members of our scientific board, and you will receive a feedback for your book. So your book grows from a good ground, a nourishing ground of the community. So things like that need to be multiplied. Yeah.
Various, but this one is really a good example of this. Okay. So like I need to continue is in me, but we need to end up in here. Thank you very much, Margherita.
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you.
Okay, bye and have a good day. I will send you a recording.
Okay.
Okay, so bye.